Okay, back with first trades. Pull up the index for you very quickly. Just about soft in the session, so not looking that great. The broader markets are active. And of course, CAC remains the top drag today, but Peninsula Land is corrected, 7% down. VF Utilities and TV18 Broadcast, a couple of others which are looking soft. Pull up the auto names and pull up Maruti Suzuki in particular and see what that one has done in trade today. Just about holding out flat. Good time as any to get in Shashank Srivastava, Executive Director of Maruti Suzuki, who joins us on the show from New Delhi to speak about how the festive season demand is looking like. Good having you, Shashank. Thanks so much for taking the time out. Now, you know, just a talk with some of the dealers would suggest that Ertiga is doing extremely well because the waiting period is high. But just broadly, for the whole bouquet, how has the response been this festive season and how have the sales been during the Dussehra period for you?
You see, before we come to the actual festival season demand, but I must tell you what has happened in the industry this year so far. So if you look at H1, it's certainly some very interesting phenomena you can observe as far as products goes and the product categories go. For example, H1, the overall growth in the industry is roughly around 7%. Maruti was flat because we had some production constraints, as you know. But if you see the big bipolar demand pattern between petrol and diesel cars, the diesel growing by more than 50% and petrol going down by more than 20%. So I think this bipolar demand has created a situation where you have a very high percentage of diesel cars being sold, and 57% of the vehicles sold in H1 were diesel, as against just 15% about four years back. And that is if you look at the fuel type. But if you look at the segment-wise, and I think that's what your initial question refers to, you see a large demand, the percentage of contribution of the MPV SUVs has gone up dramatically, and for the first time in H1, it's actually more than the sedan category. So it's more than 20% now. So 20.2% is what the MPVs are, thanks to a slew of new launches, especially from the Ertiga, which is doing extremely well, around 7,000 units a month. That's one part. The other part which we have observed over the last 1.5 years, and specifically also in H1, is the dramatic reduction in the small car category segment, which is the A1, it's basically 800 nano, and the A2 minus, which includes the Alto, the Spark, the Santro, and I-10, and so on and so forth. We call that the A2 minus segment. Now, this segment, interestingly, over the last 4 years have come down from almost 53% to 32% in H1. And the reason we believe is because of the demand for there is no really a diesel option in this segment, and as I said, the vehicle has been moving towards demand has been moving towards diesel vehicles. So and also there has been no new action, and very recently we introduced the Alto, and this Alto, which was introduced right at the start of the Navratra period, which was the 16th, has given a new sort of life to this segment. And this segment, which has been growing down, we are expecting extremely good response. So far, we have got almost 23,000 or so bookings for the Alto, and I think it has done quite well from the initial reports.
So Shashank, what has been the response like in the last fortnight, and would that mean that you guys will cross the total volume figure of 1 lakh plus units for the month of October?
I can't really give you a forward number to this, but yes, if you compare with last October, there is good growth. But I must tell you, last October the base was low because we had a production constraint last October. Last October, the industry sales were roughly 183,000 as a total industry, and this year I think the total industry for October should be somewhere between 240 to 250,000. So yes, you'll see a lot of growth. But the base last year was less, and I think that would be the story for Q3 also. But the Q4 base, which is Jan, Feb, March, is going to be very large. And I think if you look at the H1 figure, where the industry has grown about 7%, H2 the industry may not grow as much. Although, as I said, Q3 would look good because Q3 last year wasn't so great.
But on a month-on-month basis, would you post an uptick vis-a-vis September?
Yeah, I think if you see there is this festival season demand for October, so I would guess so, yes, but I would still not like to put a number to it actually. because much depends on the last week, as you know, in automobile sales, and I think that's where giving an exact number or exact growth might be not feasible.
That's fine, not a problem. Well, what about the outstanding bookings currently for Ertiga and Swift ahead of the festive season? If you could throw some more light on that.
Yeah, as you know, last year we had introduced these 3 new products, the new Desire, the new Swift, and the new Ertiga, and they have shown phenomenal response. The Swift, for example, was doing about 12,000 units a month last year. After the introduction, it is doing almost 18,000 or so per month. The Desire, which was doing about 8,000 a month earlier, is now doing almost 14,000 a month. And Ertiga, which the category didn't exist, and we created that small category for small MPVs, and that has actually grown dramatically. And also an interesting thing about Ertiga, we're doing about 7,000 a month. So yes, and we have had a backlog, especially in diesel vehicles, because as I have mentioned earlier, the diesel demand have been strong not only for these 3 models but also for other models of the competitors as well. But interestingly, for Ertiga, for example, we ran into a very long booking period within a month of the launch, and we were expecting that the other MPVs sales would slow down, but actually the other competitor MPVs like Innova, for example, have been doing equally large numbers. So that was a very interesting observation we made out in the. This is something which was unexpected. So I think all these 3 models still continue to enjoy great support from customers, and there is of course a waiting period for each of them.
You mentioned as well, and the numbers indicate the YTD decline of 21% in the small car sales volumes. You have introduced the Alto out there too. I mean, how do you expect to end the year with? I know predictions aren't probably exactly on the number, but what's the best guesstimate that you have, small car sales particularly?
I have mentioned just now, the H1, the growth in the industry was about 7%. Maruti was flat, and in H2, with Q3 numbers not being large last year, we would probably show a good growth in Q3, but Q4, where the base is very large, I would expect industry still to show a single-digit growth at the end, and that is my expectation actually.
Shashank, finally, before we let you go, how's been the production ramp up at Manesar been shaping up, and now things back to normalcy?
Yeah, I think we are doing more than 1,500, 1,600 cars now per day. So I think we are almost back to normal. I think in the peak period it used to be about 1,700, 1,800 was the range of vehicles per day. So I think we are quite close to that now.
Leave it at that, Shashank. Thanks so much for taking the time out and joining us, and all the best
Thank you very
for
much.
the remainder of the year.
Thank you.
Okay, from one auto name to